you don't want to belong to a certain church, that pastor is not God. Religious and slavery. Some people are enslaved by their pastors. Nobody can take your destiny from you. I raise my powerful hand on you, your family, your nation, and everything will be fine with you politically. Greetings. We are continuing our series on the book of Exodus. Today we want to look at a very important topic, handling the yeast in our lives. Handling the yeast in our lives. When you put yeast in dough, the yeast puffs up the dough. It only takes a small amount for this to happen. Pride and arrogance in people is similar to yeast in our lives. Just a little pride and arrogance can puff you up and quickly take over your life, getting you in all kinds of trouble. In the Bible, yeast is often a metaphor for pride and arrogance. It is also used in the Bible to indicate the Exodus movements and the things that God established in the life of the Israelites. When you come to the New Testament, Jesus said in Mark chapter 8 verse 16 to his disciples, "Be careful or beware of the yeast of the Pharisees and the yeast of Herod." Yeast or leaven is also used for gossips, negative influence, and the spread of falsehood that can destroy a community, it can destroy a family, and it can destroy relationships. To do this, we want to go to Exodus chapter 12 verses 14 to 16. Exodus 12, 14 to 16, as we talk about handling the yeast in our lives. And I read, "This is a day to remember. Each year, from generation to generation, you must celebrate it as a special festival to the Lord. This is a law for all time. For 7 days, the bread you eat must be made without yeast. On the first day of the festival, remove every trace of yeast from your homes. Anyone who eats bread made with yeast during the 7 days of the festival will be cut off from the community of Israel. On the first day of the festival, and again on the 7th day, all the people must observe an official day for holy assembly. No work of any kind may be done on these days except in the preparation of the food." Now, in this situation, we want to look at how yeast, which was used as a metaphor, was used in this particular passage, as we contemplate how we can remove the yeast in our own lives. First, yeast in our lives. One is remove. We have to remove the yeast in our life. We have to cut off the material which is human and which is also in our minds from our lives. And when we go to Exodus chapter 12 verse 16, it says, "For 7 days the bread you eat must be without yeast. On the first day of the festival, remove every trace of yeast from your homes." It simply means take out, or you should not entertain any form of yeast in your life. Exodus 12:15b says, "Anyone who who eats bread made with yeast during the 7 days of the festival will be cut off from the community of Israel. It is an instruction to remove both material and human presence of yeast from their midst completely. Any form of influence that is yeast-like must be removed. So if we have a form of something which is influencing us and making us influence society negatively, we are being told to remove it from our lives. You know your own yeast and I know mine, and we are supposed to remove them. 2, there's a need for reflection as we go on to remove the yeast, because if you remove it mechanically, it might not work. Exodus chapter 12 verse 16 says, on the first day of the festival and again on the 7th day, all the people must observe an official day for holy assembly. They must observe. It is not something that is done thoughtlessly and mechanically. That is, the removing of the yeast is not to be done thoughtlessly and mechanically. So they should spend free time to reflect on the yeast in their lives, which they have removed, because it's going to come back. And so you have to suspend the distraction of work to make sure they are fully refreshed in their hearts and minds as they focus and reflect on their yeastly activities and do away with them. Sin, insincerity, untruth is targeted here to be removed. Hypocrisy is to be dealt with. These are matters of the heart. So it's only by sober reflection that we can remove them from our life. And one has to stop and think through so as to be able to resolve. And this resolution, or for you to be able to resolve these issues, you need to go into a period of solitude so that you can focus on God and God alone. It must be a period or day of holy assembly with no living interferences, solely committed to focusing on God in the assembly of the people of God. So there's a need not to say that I have done it. You need to soberly reflect on these things within the communal setup as you pray together with others, as you fellowship together with others. You need to reflect deeply on the yeast in your life. 3, we have to exercise restraint as we continue doing things that are seen to be yeasts in our lives. Exodus 12:16b says, no work of any kind may be done on these days except in the preparation of the food. It is free time, no work. They are to restrain themselves from indulging in work-related and gainful activities to enable them capture sincerity and truth. When you go into work and you are actually intending to make money whichever way. You want to leak books, you have to gossip about others, you want to pull others down, you want to bribe others, you want to be corrupt, you want to do all sorts of things, you want to cut corners. So work sometimes becomes a way of sort of getting involved in yeastly activities. So sometimes you don't have to go work all the time. Sometimes you have to stop work so you can reflect on your attitudes and your characters as you work. A complete heart, mind, and body commitment to God means that there are times that you have to stop work and refresh. You cannot go on and on and on and on and on and on without stopping. Exercise restraint on yourself so that you will know who you are and what you're doing, because we all have temptation of yeast that can take over our lives and make us become bad influences in our situation. Sometimes you need to stop. You don't make yourself a money-making machine, so you don't stop and you don't exercise restraint. We are to be mindful of ourselves and not to be so preoccupied with our interests, so much so that we are unable to remove the dangers in our lives that infiltrate us and make us puffed up and detached from the presence of God. It starts very slowly and soon takes a foothold and then spreads to every fabric of our being. Let sin not have dominion over our mortal bodies. Please remove the yeast in your life before it totally spreads and takes over your whole life, and you become an instrument of distraction of yourself and a distraction of others. So, these are the three things that we have looked at, and they are very important. And in our lives, we need to be able to see ourselves as people who God Himself has chosen, has set apart, has separated from yeast so that He can use us for His purposes. In conclusion, when you are filled with pride, you blow things out of proportion. All of a sudden, little things get you really upset. When that happens, you know you are really dealing with pride. Wherever you find conflict anywhere in the world, pride is always involved. When you are filled with pride, when you have the yeast of the Pharisees, guess what? You can't see clearly. Pride even blocks you from seeing what God is doing in your life. Beware the yeast of the Pharisees, so that you can move or be more close to God. As you clear the pride from your life, you'll start to see how God is working. You may even realize He's working a miracle in your life. May God give you a mind of restraint. May God give you a mind not only of restraint, but a mind that can remove the yeast in your life. It is also a mind that can reflect deeply and be able to stop everything, think through, and go on to be good influences rather than bad influences. God bless you.
Hope you are blessed with this message. To get in touch with other messages of the servants of God, follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel.